about to Atherash B'nai Yisrael, Legulgalotum is about the raising up and elevation of the level of the head specifically. Specifically, the head we have to raise up to a higher level because the head is the level of understanding when it comes to regel, when it comes to the leg. Over there is the natural, innate type of Kabbalah's oil that the leg follows and does what it's supposed to do. But when it comes to the head can question and can, turn it over and think this way and think that way. So therefore, when it comes to the head, we need to raise it up to a higher level. And the higher level is the level of the Golgolus, the skull, just like physically the skull is something that encompasses and higher than the brain. That's the main part of the head, the level of thought. So too, we need to raise it up to that higher level, to the level of the bittul, to the state of beyond seichel, that it shouldn't be that I try to squeeze in Torah according to my ego and my understanding, but the other way around, we try to take Hashem's ratzon, Hashem's will, and understand it with our mind and bring it down. And that is the idea, and that's accomplished by having tefillah before davening, by having tefillah before learning, by having davening before learning. So that ensures that our connection is with the level of the higher than our mind, and therefore that ensures that when our mind is doing things in Torah, it is doing things in accordance with Hashem's will. We said that also has to do with Midbar Sinai and Oil Moued. Midbar Sinai, that's a level of tefillah. Oil Moued, that's the idea of Torah. So that's why also it says those two things. Now, once we've explained the derash meaning in the word su'u, raise up, instead of the literal translation, which means counting, because we explained this translation this way, because it could have used other types of translations for counting. It could have said timna, tispar, tifkoid, all these other words. We said that the su'u, the counting over here, su'u as Yisrael, is also an idea of raising up the head. Now the Rebbe is going to connect this entire concept also with the literal, not the literal, but I guess the literal meaning or the common meaning or the meaning in Shutish or Mikra that we're talking here about counting. So he's going to associate everything that we just now said about the Torah being raised up through the Tefillah to the level of Golgolus with the idea of the simple counting. So again, page Yud Aleph, the 7th page of the copies, Hey, line 3. This whole idea is connected with the literal and the simple meaning when we're talking about in the pasuk that's the idea of counting. We find about counting two opposites. The whole concept of counting encompasses in it two opposites. The general idea of minyan, of counting, indicates something of import, of value. The Gemara uses a term that's something that its normal way is to be counted. In other words, there are things that are sold by, there's bunches of grapes, for example. Person doesn't count every single grape and said, I'm selling you 5 grapes for a quarter. And if it's 10 grapes, it'll be a special bargain price at 40 cents. No, you don't count grapes. You sell them in bundles and bunches, etc., etc. Then there are items that are sold by number. You sell a dozen eggs, or you sell something else you sell by number. The idea of number, that's what it says, a shadar kilimon, is something that's usually counted in regards, let's say, to a sale. So that shows on the importance and value of every individual piece. That's why we count it. But for that very reason, but in the halachas of Yerdei, where it speaks about things that can be nullified, if something not kosher, for example, got mixed into something that's kosher. So even though there are certain general rules about nullification, certain types of nullification is as long as there's a majority of the kosher over the non-kosher, it's still batel, but it doesn't apply. There's many exceptions to this rule. One of the exceptions is if it's davar shebeminyan. If it's something that is normally counted, then it's not batel. Why? Because the idea of shivas, since it's something important, it cannot be nullified. So that's one concept that is related to the idea of counting in numbers. Another idea of counting in numbers, which also is related to this importance and value of every individual. She says in number 7, in line 7, also the idea of counting is an idea of boundary and division. Every one of the counted is distinct from the other. That's the idea of counting. This is 1, here is 2, here is 3, here is 4. For example, like we had recently in Chumash concerning meisters, the animals that you gave meiser from. So you counted off, let's say, 9 sheep, and the 10 you marked. Each sheep was something distinct. It wasn't like just a bunch of sheep. It was every single one was in a distinct and separate body, and that's the idea of numbering them. This is also the idea that numbers and counting is only revealing. It's not the essence of the thing. Vu gilui is das nit etzem. Wherever there is revelation, that's not essence. Vu gilui is das hagbala. Wherever there is revelation, that's limitation. So in other words, the idea that something can be numbered and counted, that's the external manifestation of something. It is the revelation of it. That's the way it manifests itself. That is all one part of the equation of numbers and counting. Then he goes on line 12. On the other hand, and the idea of counting in numbers in such a manner, even a person that's on the most highest level that the person could be on, he is only counted as one, no more. He can be the greatest person in the room, and there can be hundreds of other people, but if we're counting people, or if we're counting for a minyan, it could be Moshe Rabbeinu, and he's only one, not 1 1/4, not 1 1/2. And also, a person that is the least of the least is also considered one, and not less than one. That's an indication that counting someone, numbering something, has nothing to do with the distinct particular qualities of that particular individual. Though surely they are distinct in their qualities, still in all, not from that perspective is their count. In other words, like this. True, Moshe Rabbeinu might be the greatest, and Dasan Vaviram, let's say, might be the lowest. But as far as numbering is concerned, as far as when we count, counting has nothing to do with the individual's qualities. Rather, when we count them, we are counting them in regards to their essence. That they are the same by all. The essence is equal by all. Therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu is counted as one, and someone else that's the lowest is counted as one. All of this indicates that in numbering and counting, it shows on something very high. It taps into the very essence, and therefore everyone is the same. Another concept by this is when the minion is directed and done according to Torah, so then the idea of a ayin hara is not applicable, is not possible. Not like there were other occasions in the history of Klal Yisrael, the story of the times of David HaMelech, where there wasn't supposed to be a count, didn't do the count in the way it was supposed to be done up Torah, and then there were negative consequences. The Rebbe says, what's the idea of numbers and counting having to do with negativity? So he says, first of all, very simple thing. We know in an ordinary fashion, the Chazal say that blessing is not found only in something that is covered and hidden from the eye. If someone is always counting what they have in the field, in the silo, etc., so this is something that does not allow, if you will, for the bracha to reside. And the reason why it helps for it to be concealed, why it helps for something not to be counted, or in general for something to be concealed, for the bracha to come down, it says kivin shezel me'alma diskasi is something that's concealed down here, manifests and expresses it's coming down from the world of concealment, which is higher than the revealed world. And being that's from the world of concealment, from such a high level in godliness, that's over there, by bisha, that a negative eye, a bad eye, an ayin hara cannot approach that. Over here, the uniqueness is, by the case in our parsha, though there's the idea of counting, still in Moshe's minion, since it's accounting is done according to Torah directive. Hashem was telling Moshe Rabbeinu to do this. Therefore, an ayin hara is not applicable. Similar to what it says, that they will be as many as fish within the land. What's the idea of saying that there are as many as fish within the land? What type of bracha is that? That Yaakov Avinu gave a bracha to Menashe and Ephraim. So it says, "V'hainu." This means that that usually there is no ayin hara by fish. That's what it says. That other living creatures are susceptible to ayin hara. Fish are not. Why? Because they're davar asamim min ha'ayin. They're concealed. They're hidden under the water. And what happened with Yaakov Avinu's children is the kana chidushu. Here the novelty is shafilu b'kerev ha'aretz, even while being within the earth. Loy sheletes bahem eina bish. That's what it means. V'yidvu l'roy, they will increase and be a lot like fish, but while being b'kerev ha'aretz, within the earth, not being uncovered and not being covered under the sea like fish are, but being people upon the earth, they will have much without the idea of ayin hara. That's a special blessing that Yaakov Avinu gave them. That's because of what's brought down Kabbalah, that there's a level of the open eye of Hashem that comes from the level of Atik, that the less small of a high Atika, since in the level of Atik there's no level of left. Everything in Atik is in the way of the right. It has two lines, and both lines are the level of right, and therefore it's entirely good. So when you have the level that comes down from the Eina Kicha, the Atika, so over there that could protect even in a level where ordinarily there's Eina Bisha, there could be a possibility for Ayin Hara. So that we find about the minyan, we find about the count, we find about the case when Hashem counted the Bnei Yisrael, or told Moshe Rabbeinu to count the Bnei Yisrael, that it was in such a way that would not have any negative effects whatsoever. Any questions before we go on? Of line 6. In addition to the general idea that you shall count the heads of all the congregations of Bnei Yisrael, concerning the general number of the 600,000 Yidden, and this 600,000 Yidden is actually, there was a little bit more of that. Including also the remnants, those that were over the amount of 600,000. The 3,550, explained at a different place, the significance of those that went over the number of 600,000, but it's still included in the general idea of the counting the 600,000. So in addition to counting every individual, there's another concept in the count. There's also the idea that the pasuk says to count them to their families and to their fathers' houses. What's that idea? What's the families? What's the fathers' houses? To their families. The 70 souls, the 70 people that went down with Yaakov Avinu, or that were there when Yaakov Avinu arrived in Mitzrayim. It was a number of 70 people. So each one of them represented like a different family. Then also Ulebeis Avoisam, meaning also the father, their father's house, and the way they're even higher than families. Higher than families, higher than the number 70, is the way each individual is connected to their particular shevet, to their particular tribe where they came from. It was Reuben, Yehuda, Naphtali, and so on. That's because of the unique advantage that every shevet has. It's important to recognize the connection that every person has with his shevet. So, it says every shevet goes up in their own path, just like by Kriyas Yamsuf, by the splitting of the sea. Every shevet had their own path in the sea. The same thing spiritually. Every shevet has their own way of being oila and avodas Hashem. And this idea that every shevet has their own derech and avodas Hashem matters to every single yid. That's why it's important for the last for thousands of years since this event took place that we read all these details. We read about Mishpachayisam, we read about the Beis Avoisam, Hein Prati Amin and the Chol Shevet Me'atzmai, both the specific count of every shevet individually, even though, like he's saying in the say, not on these days, that not everybody knows what shevet they are coming from, because most people actually do not know what shevet they're from. That's why the Alter Rebbe's Siddur was written in such a fashion that it's a general nusach that's applicable to all Shvatim. Says that really every shevet has, because of its own way of aliyah, their davening and their nusach should be or would be different than a different shevet. But since most Yidden do not know what shevet they are from, so the Alter Rebbe established a type of general nusach, a nusach that encompasses all the Shvatim and all the levels, so that every Yid, no matter what shevet they are from, regardless if they know what shevet they are from, they are able to daven in it. So despite the fact that in present times we don't know which Shevet we're from, or along with the fact that we don't know which Shevet we're from, so we are reading about all the Shvatim's lineage. We could say I'm reading about all the Shvatim's lineage because maybe one of these is mine. But the Rebbe goes on to say in the parentheses, in the brackets, line 22, even in a time when Yidden did know what Shevet are from, they still read the count of a different Shevet. Let's say they were from Shevet Naphtali. They were still reading about Zvulun's count. How come? What is the avoida of the lineage that the Torah speaks about Naphtali have to do with me if I'm from Shevet Zvul? Because Harikol Yisrael Arevim Zalzem, since all Yidden are responsible one for another. And why are all Yidden responsible one for another? Because every one of Klal Yisrael is intermingled and has within him all the rest of Klal Yisrael. That's why I'm responsible for every Yid, because in me there is another 600,000 neshamas that are part of my neshama. And therefore, even though I personally, because of my lineage, I may know that I'm from Shevet Zvulun, like in those days that they did know, but still in all, I read the parashas to do with Naphtali and Yehuda and Dan and Gad and Levi and Reuben. Why? Because I have within me also spiritually the lineage of Reuben and Levi and Gad and so on. And that is in the specifics. Now we read in the Torah all the details of every specific shape. Then he goes on line 25, and we also read in the Torah Ben close. I'm reading the Shishim Rifnei Yisrael, and also the general number of the 600,000 Yid. How come? Why do we read all of these? Because every single Yid is an entire world, meaning he's like the entire 600,000 Yidden. Chazal say, why was a person created alone? All the other creations in the world, whether it's animals, birds, plant life, it wasn't just one orange tree created, or one cow created, or one hen created, but created all the chickens, all the birds, all the animals. When it came to human beings, only one person was created to teach us, because I'll say, that whoever sustains and saves one life, does if he saves the entire Klal Yisrael. To such a degree that every Yid, top of page Gimel, includes in him all the other 600,000. That's why part of my Torah reading is reading about the number of 600,000, because every Yid has in him and is connected to all the 600,000. The Rebbe gives a very strong application of this, what we have to do with this. If I included in me all the 600,000, therefore it's in the capability of every Yid to affect all the 600,000 Yidden. Va'ad, to such a degree, through one action, the Rambam explains, a person can tilt the scales for himself and the entire world for the side of merit. Why? Because every Yid contains in him all the rest of Klal Yisrael. So he goes on line 4. This is also the reason why every single Yid completes the number of the whole Klal Yisrael. And without me, Klal Yisrael would be missing something. Chazal say, if there would have been one person missing from the 600,000 Yidden, the Yidden would not have received the Torah. Okay, moving, how do we see also the importance of every single individual? Like it's also understood, also where it says, I'm Hashem your God. It says it was from Yachid in the singular. Even Shekol Zen, Nemar, L'chol Echad B'yichud. Cursor on Noichi Hashem Lekechem, because the Aseres HaDibros were said to every Yid individually and distinct from everyone else. Through reading this in the Torah every year, so the count of the Bnei Yisrael comes down anew. In an even higher way, incomparably to the previous year, because now that I read it anew, this new year has new koich, has new chayes, and so on. And by days and nasis gama chonel kabosa Torah bezman Torah say no. So then, this reading in the Torah makes that the preparation for the receiving of the Torah and the upcoming Yom Tov Shavuos will be incomparably higher than the previous year. Because since every year comes down new light, completely renewed, that never revealed itself and never shown from the time of existence such a high light. Similar to what's explained concerning that when it comes to Rosh Hashanah, we say a totally new light comes down for the beginning of the year till the end of the year, and then at the end of the year it returns, and a new light incomparable to the previous year comes down. The same thing every Shavuos, there's a new revelation incomparable to before. Then Nimshach al Kol Hashanah, from the Yom Tov of Shavuos, that comes down this new light that has never been by any other previous Shavuos, going back 3,336 years to the first Shavuos of Matan Torah. So every year since then, it's been an incomparably higher light of Shavuos and a higher light of the giving of the Torah than the year prior. So from that light, that new light that comes down on Shavuos, comes down now the energy for the entire year. The Tiyah Shnas Torah should be a year of Torah, V'chein Shnas Torah, and a year of light. Shnas Bracha, a year of Bracha. Kol Shara Pratim Shenimdu Behem Shkluza, and all the other details that are enumerated in continuation of this in the Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur davening that we say Shnas Torah, Shnas Bracha, and so on. We go through the entire alphabet. Ad LaBracha Yikris till the primary bracha, Shnas Geula, a year of redemption. The Geula Mitzvah Shlema, the Meshech Tzidkenu, the true and complete redemption through Mashiach.